So they're getting into the home console scene, and how is it going to work out for Microsoft? I would say it went pretty well with the original Xbox.
It did very well, dude. When this thing came out, and Bill Gates was like, guys, we have a console. I was like, holy crap, dude. This thing was so powerful. The launch-up screen on this thing's, oh my god. I was like, whoa.
I don't know how you feel, but I don't have the nostalgia for this that I do for the PS2.
No, not
and
as
the
much.
GameCube.
And here's what's crazy is, they're in the same generation, but I always forget about Xbox.
Yeah.
I always forget about it.
But it was definitely, I remember when it came out. I remember the first game I remember seeing like on a demo. It was, I think, at a Target. It was NFL FIFA. And I was like, holy shit, that looks good. I remember the towel hanging from like the quarterback's pants kind of blowing. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I think it really benefited this console that it launched with Halo, which was ultimately a game changer for the console. The ironic thing about the OG Xbox, though, for collectors, I feel like, is that it seems to be the least coveted of the 6th gen consoles. It seems like the GameCube, obviously you guys know that are collectors, the market has went just crazy. The PS2 seems to be kind of catching up. I don't know that it'll ever
Due to those fuck crazy bashful shit, I'll discontinue it for
he's already mentioned this console's a powerhouse, and for third-party titles that are on all
I didn't know.
consoles, arguably it probably wins most of those battles. The GameCube wins some. Occasionally Sony, but very little. But usually this is the way to go.
Usually the way to go because it looks better, it plays better, it's a lot smoother. But I think a lot of people are in the same boat that's of me. It's like they just forget about the Xbox, or like it's just like the 360's better. And I know backwards compatibility comes into play with that, but does it?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know why.
This thing came out of the block strong, had 19 launch titles. I think one thing that, aside from Halo, they tried a lot of console exclusives, trying to get their own like brand ambassador, if you will. And none of those really landed. There were some great games that came out of that. But it's even ironic. So this whole episode's about should you look into collecting the original Xbox in 2021? And I think yes.
Yes.
And the reason is I don't think it gets a lot of love. I look at the current landscape of Microsoft and, the Xbox One or the Xbox Series X, and backwards compatibility has become a thing again. But it's so strange to me that the Xbox 360 has almost 500 games that are backwards compatible with the Xbox One and Xbox Series X. It's like 480. That's so many. Obviously not all exclusives, because Xbox hasn't ever really been about the exclusives for the most part. That's third-party games everywhere in between. And the OG Xbox only has 28 titles that are backwards compatible.
And there's so many amazing Xbox games.
It's so weird. So I think the value is there. The other reason I think is it's really freaking cheap to collect for. Now there are your outliers for games. The console's going for like $35, $36,
$30 to $40 just for the console, and then you can get controllers for $10 to $15. And what's cool about the original Xbox is there's two variants of it.
Yeah. So the better of the two controllers you can get for about $12, which is the Xbox S. This is the second variation. What's strange about the Xbox is its core console only had one variant. The PS2 went from the big boy to the slim boy. And this was just a monster, but never got that slim look. But they did with the controller. Yeah. Now, the controller that a lot of people bash on tends to be the most expensive if you're looking at it from a collector standpoint. The good old Duke. The Duke, this thing is huge. It's a chunker. The weird thing is, though, is this is the first controller I played Xbox with, and typically when we play Xbox, we bust out our Dukes.
We do, just because it's fun. I had the regular one, or the regular size, but what's crazy is the small version of the Xbox controller is still bigger than the PS2 and the GameCube controller. Like, it's still a big controller.
So that smaller controller was the second, iteration of the controller. I think it's called the S-Type, but it's probably the one most people would want to go with, and if it's the best one and most people want to go with it, and it's the cheapest, you may want to go there. If you want some nostalgia, and you want that big old chunker, go with the freaking Duke. It's just kind of a rite of passage when you're playing Xbox.
Speaking of controllers, breakaway cords. Microsoft invented breakaway cords, and this was a genius idea.
How many times
Genius idea.
have you tripped over your console and yanked the console?
Especially back in the day.
Or the controller out of the player's hands. And they actually have a pretty, it's not too loose of a resistance, but it's just right.
It's just perfect enough, and it's so freaking sweet that they did that, because they were like, hey, Everyone's tripping on these cords, but and how do we not damage our console? Breakaway cords. That's genius.
Yeah, and for a controller that maybe isn't the greatest, I don't think they got their traction until 360.
That happened with the OGX.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So circling back, the console's about $36. You get into controllers for about $12. The console, reliability is kind of hit and miss, but I would say for the price of poker, $36, I don't think you're risking a lot.
No, and
Can't get on it for that much. And we've had really good luck. We've got two, one in the garage, one in here.
yeah, I've never really had issues with the OG Xbox. I know that I've heard issues, but I've never experienced it, and I've been playing it since I can remember, because my dad had one, we had two in the game. Like, I've been playing it a lot.
I feel like we've gotten lucky. Now, when we leave our game room, we cover all of our consoles, we dust them a lot, so maybe that has something to do with it. But there are some reliability issues. But again, for the price of $36 to $40, I don't think it's too much of a dice roll to take a chance on it. Another good thing about the Xbox is that it is a very hackable machine. Now, we haven't done it. I don't know the process of that. I know the process of doing it for some other consoles, but I never really wanted to mess up the originality of it. But for those of you hackers out there that want to be able to play OG Xbox games and some other things, it does have a pretty ease of entry into hacking it, but it also can play DVDs.
Yes, it's really cool.
I think, though, you have to have the DVD remote, which we have one somewhere, but we've never used it as a
I never used it as a DVD player. It can play CDs as well. And I know back in the day that was huge. Like, that's why I love my PS2, because it could do that as well. Yeah, and what's crazy is people forget about the Xbox. The GameCube couldn't do any of that.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, and like you mentioned, today it's just like, I don't care. I probably wouldn't even burn up my laser and the innards by playing a DVD. I think it would be wasted motion.
But it's like back in the day, that was like just reason to get a console.
Yeah.
You could play games, you could listen to your music, you could watch movies. It's just everything all in one box.
This also has 4 controller ports, which makes playing games like Halo and Halo 2, which are great games on the thing, and we'll cover some games later, but each Halo game is right around $10. You play 4-player split screen, and this is LAN party ready. You just connect your internet cable to the back, you can system link. A lot of times we always just run all the consoles to a router. You could have tons of fun if you can pick up or have friends that have a few of these and hook them up. So to this point, we are into the console for about, let's say 40.
Yes.
You can get one under 40, and then you maybe want to grab an extra controller or two. So let's say you buy two, $24 on